Hey, Lane Sebring here. This is Preaching Donkey. I wanted to talk in this video about the difference between inviting versus pushing. What I mean by this is when we preach, there is two approaches we can take generally to application. One is to be pushy. This is where we come across in a way that is very much like, this is the application and you need to do it and here's all the reasons why. And if you don't do it, then you're really missing out on God's best for you and how could you? And there might be a time for pushy application, even though that has kind of a negative connotation now that I'm saying it. But there's a time for direct application. There's a time to say, this is what the Word of God says, and this is how we should respond to it. There is a time for that. However, I think that in most cases, inviting is far more effective. Inviting people to apply the message and even giving people an out from applying the message. And here's what I mean by that. Andy Stanley says often that when you give people an out, they lean in closer. This is just human nature. If somebody feels as if they don't have a choice, right? Like you're gonna beat it over their heads, most people recoil at that, especially if maybe they're unbelieving or maybe they're new believers or maybe they're just searching and trying to discover faith. And so they find themselves in your church and they're sitting there and you're saying, this is what you must do. There's a tendency to go, I don't know. I mean, how do you know what I'm supposed to do? What gives you the right to tell me what to do? That kind of thing. However, if you give people an out where you're taking a more invitational approach to the application and you're saying things like, what if you were to do this? Or would you consider giving this a try? I mean, would that really hurt if you were to give this a try? Wouldn't it be amazing if you tried this and you found that what God says here is true and it works in your life? But you're still giving people an out. You're saying, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to believe this if you don't want to. But what if you did? What if you were to? What difference might that make? Because when you give people an out, they lean in closer. And so I want you to try this. I want to invite you to try this in your next sermon, where instead of taking a direct application approach, where you say, this is what it says, this is what you must do. What if instead of that, you said, hey, I want to invite you to try this. And then even give people an out. Hey, you don't have to if you don't want to, but what if you did? Where you create a little bit of intrigue and give people that option. I mean, obviously, people have the option if they want it. They don't have to do anything just because you say to do it or not to do it. But by giving people an out, they might just lean in closer and you might find that your application goes further and deeper in their lives. A few practical ways to do this is, one, do something that's called Futurecasting. This is where you paint really two pictures where you say, here's what it would look like were you to apply this part of the message. Here's what your future could look like. Here's what next week could look like, next month could look like, and really paint a picture of what kind of things God could do in their lives if they were to apply the message. And then you could futurecast the other way and you could say, here's what it looks like if you don't, and kind of paint that picture. And you want to avoid extremes when you do this. It'd be very easy to say, apply the message and life is going to be great. Don't apply the message and your life's going to fall apart. Doesn't it suck to be you, right? You want to avoid that because people can kind of see right through that. Most applications don't have that level of intensity attached to them. So if you're future casting, you want to just be realistic. Hey, you can do this and it might just work for you and you might find more peace, more joy, more love, more whatever in your life. And if you don't, your life just might stay the same. Do you really want that, right? Are you satisfied? Are you happy with the way things are going in your relationship with God and others? So Futurecast. The other way is to invite people to disagree with you. I mean, literally just to say, hey, I want you to question this. If you disagree, that's fine. Do your own research. I'm just presenting to you what I believe the scriptures are teaching. And then finally, invite action before belief is there. This is one of the things that I think is so vital to say, to give people permission to act before they believe. So let me give you an example. Let's say that your application involves a daily time of reading the Bible. And you might have someone in your congregation that day, and you might have many in your congregation who don't believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God. You want to invite them to read it whether they believe that or not. Because if we really believe that the Bible doesn't return void, then why wouldn't we want everybody reading it? So you might say, hey, you may not believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God, but try it out. I mean, what's the harm in reading it every day? Why not just read it every day this week and see if you don't experience God speaking to you through what we believe is His Word? And it's fine if you don't believe that, but try reading it and give people an invitation to do an action before the belief is there. So again, there's a difference between direct application and a more invitational approach. And all I'm saying is that these are some ways that you can take a more invitational approach with your application. And you can try it this Sunday and see what you think and how it goes. And then let me know in the comments how this works out for you and what kind of experience you feel like it gave your listeners, what kind of different experience maybe it gave your listeners. I want to put something free in your hands. You can go to preachingdonkey.com/21days and pick up my free 21-day guide to creating killer sermons. It's a 3-step, 3-week process that just walks you through how to create and deliver a compelling message. And a lot of the application stuff that we talked about today is in that guide as well. So pick that up at preachingdonkey.com/21days. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next video.